Oh,
but
yeah, no, it's
yeah.
okay. I was able to join just with the codes.
Oh, okay, all right. All right, good. Okay, then I'm starting the stream. I'll say the open line, right?
Yep.
And people will start to join. All right, guys, today we're talking about something people throw around a lot but rarely understand trauma. And some people use it to explain everything, others ignore completely. And then there's a forgiveness, the idea that you have to forgive to move on. So today we're going to break it down properly. And I'm really excited because I'm joined by licensed trauma psychotherapists Amanda and Gregory. She's also the author of You Don't Need to Forgive, which is exactly what we're going to get into today. Hello, Amanda.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited. This is my first time hosting such an event, but I love to help people, and I'm so happy I found you. I swear.
And such great topics to address to help people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So let's start from the beginning how this actually shows up in real life. And the question number one, how does unresolved trauma actually shows up in adult relationships?
In so many ways. Especially if we're talking about trauma that happened in childhood, in families, in when we're really developing and our brains are so vulnerable. When that happens, we see trauma come up a lot in relationships in regards to how we attach to people or how
Mm.
we don't.
Yeah,
Sometimes trauma can make it so that attaching to people is really threatening or really difficult because we may have experienced attachment that was really inconsistent in our
right.
childhood. So we don't know how to do that, and it can feel very scary. Some people may not know how to attach at all. So they tend to socially isolate, or connecting with people is really difficult. So that's one way that it could show up in relationships. But even, traumatic experiences that may happen in adulthood. Let's say
Uh,
you had a pretty good childhood, no trauma, but maybe something happened when you were an adult. That can still negatively impact your relationships in regards to struggling to feel safe, but also shame. Shame is a
mhm.
common thing that comes up regardless of if the trauma, occurred when you were a child or adult. Because a lot of times when we go through things, the easiest explanation that our brains can get to is that it was somehow my fault, somehow,
Yeah,
or there was something wrong with me. And so if I have this core belief and I'm in an adult relationship, that makes it really difficult, especially if the person that I'm in the relationship with doesn't agree with that.
yeah,
Maybe they feel like I'm a person of worth and value and they love me, but if deep, deep down I don't agree with them, that could be
hmm,
really threatening.
yeah. Oh my God, why didn't I meet you before? My life would be so much easier. All right, then why do people keep repeating the same patterns even when they clearly see it hurts them?
Yeah, so I want to answer that two ways. First is sometimes we think we know, but we really don't. So sometimes we can be in a relationship and be aware that maybe it's not good for me, maybe it's, harming me, but there is a difference between having like a cognitive awareness and like a
Mhm.
deep instinctual like body awareness. So if we go back to shame, shame comes up in this way a lot. So for example, I could know logically that, let's say I have average intelligence. I don't even need to say I'm smart. Let's just say, you know what? I have
Uh-huh.
average intelligence. I can know that logically. And I can sit here and I can give you all the reasons why that's true. I can say, oh, I have a master's degree. I'm licensed. I wrote a book, blah, blah, blah. So I can give you all the reasons, but I can still believe I'm stupid.
Ah, all right.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's a
Yeah.
whole different sort of level of understanding. So an adult who's experienced trauma can be in a relationship that they may know logically isn't good for them. Logically, I'm being harmed, but
Uh-huh.
they don't have that sort of instinctual body sense that this relationship is not good. So it's going to be really difficult to leave that relationship, to
Mhm.
really place our own safety and value as number one. So sometimes we think we know, but we don't know. And this is, I think, what
Yeah.
happens when we try to give friends feedback. We try to say, hey, I don't like the way they treat you, or, I'm getting weird feelings, because sometimes our friends,
Mhm.
they may agree, but then they may not leave the relationship. So it's kind of like that, do they really know? And also, if we look at folks who do know, let's say they
Mhm.
absolutely have that awareness that no, this person is harming me, this is not good for me. Sometimes we will get in relationships to resolve our own trauma, but we
Mhm.
don't know we're doing it. Okay, so I have never come across any client, any trauma survivor that sits there and says, I realize that I'm in this romantic relationship or I'm in this friendship to resolve the trauma that I experienced with this other person. Nobody ever says that because
Yeah.
there's not an awareness. It usually comes after the fact. It usually comes after we've left the relationship or the relationship has changed. So I really want to
Mhm.
say that because some people hear this and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm doing this to myself." So you're not doing anything to yourself. I
Mhm.
really don't feel like at that really core level, but sometimes we will get into relationships to resolve our own trauma. Sometimes we get caught in patterns because we're used to them. So if I am used to people treating me in a bad way that are harming me, well,
Mhm.
entering in relationships that have the same dynamics, that's comfortable for me. Entering into a relationship that is the opposite of somebody who is safe, someone who's capable, someone who values me, that's going to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's I like it. I like it. I understand it now.
Yeah.
All right, then how can someone tell this is trauma and not just who they are?
Oh, yeah, then we're getting into like defining trauma, right? From
Yes.
identity. And so I want to start a little bit away, starting kind of like with the pop psychology definition of
Uh-huh.
trauma and why
All
it's really
right.
become a buzzword. And I want to say this because sometimes when therapists speak about this, I think we can come across as really judgmental. We
Uh-huh.
can come across as you're not defining trauma the right way, and I
Uh-huh.
do not want
Uh-huh.
to come across because I think there is a valid reason why people are using the word trauma more and more. I think a lot of people have been unheard. They
Uh-huh.
think they have not been understood or accepted, and so I
Uh-huh.
think we use these terms to try to get people to understand. So there's a reason why trauma has become a buzzword. And so when we look at defining trauma, I think that's really important because when we define it in sort of a clinical way, then we can start to see the difference between trauma and maybe other experiences or even a part
Uh-huh.
of who we are. So trauma is not an event. Trauma is not an experience. Okay. So sexual assault is not trauma. That doesn't make sense.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Trauma is our response to an event over time. So,
Uh-huh.
certain events could lead to trauma responses or not. There have been plenty of people that have experienced things that you and I would think are absolutely going to cause trauma. Absolutely, you're traumatized, and they're not. So, when we look at trauma, I always tell people don't look at your experience, don't look at your event. Look at the way that you responded over time. And
Uh-huh.
we're looking for things like, how does it feel when you think of it now? Now that it's past and now that you are safe, how do you think about yourself? How do you think about the world? What sensations do you notice in your body? Is it negatively impacting your life now and in what ways? So that's really when we kind of get into trauma. Now,
Uh-huh.
if we're looking at the difference between trauma and identity, trauma is a set of responses to something where identity tends to be pretty kind of secure at times, like personality. It can
Uh-huh.
change a little bit, it can flow, we change as people, but I think there's some aspects that tend to be pretty solid. So let me give you an example.
Uh-huh.
If someone experienced trauma and they are very angry, and they
Uh-huh.
tend to come across as an angry person. Well, if I'm trying to help them figure out, okay, is this a response to your trauma or are you just an angry person? Which one is it? A lot of times what you will do is you will kind of get treatment for the trauma, those
Uh-huh.
responses. And a lot of times people who are angry because of trauma, it's not anger. Now we see anger, we hear anger, they feel anger, but underneath that is fear.
Uh-huh.
They don't feel safe. So they're doing everything they can to protect themselves and push us away. But once that person feels safer and safer and safer, guess what? The anger goes away. The anger doesn't
Uh-huh.
need to be there anymore to keep them safe. So is that an angry person? No. That's a trauma survivor. So the anger was a response. So I think the easiest way to answer that question is what's trauma and what is just you? Well, when the trauma has been treated, when it's been resolved, when you feel safer, when you experience more self-worth, when you're really able to show up in your relationships, do you still have these behaviors or these characteristics that you didn't like? Are they hanging
Mhm.
around? Are they still there? Or have they decreased or dissipated? And if they have, well, that might have been a trauma response.
Yeah, that's actually important because a lot of people like they d- they confused at this point, and I feel like this is where forgiveness comes in and gets really confusing, right?
Yeah.
So then, why is forgiveness so difficult for some people?
I think it's really difficult for some people for many reasons. First of all, I think there are situations where people are not capable of forgiving. And this is hard for people to accept and understand because unfortunately, society has kind of pegged forgiveness as this panacea and this moral code. You
Mhm.
have to do it, and if you don't do it, you're bad or you're not doing it right. But there's a lot of reasons why someone isn't capable of forgiving. And in my research, I found that some of the most common reasons are people don't feel safe enough to forgive.
Evan.
So if I'm thinking of forgiving someone who's done me harm and I don't feel safe from them, and I'm not just talking about physical safety, I absolutely need to be physically safe from them, but I'm talking emotional safety, financial safety, sexual safety, spiritual safety. There's so many types of safety. And if I don't feel safe enough, I'm not going to be able to forgive them. In fact, my system is not going to allow me to because my safety
Mhm.
comes first.
Mhm.
We are all organisms, we're all human beings, and survival comes first.
Yep.
So a lot of people don't feel safe enough to forgive. And so if somebody's trying to forgive and they can't, one thing I do is I help them to assess their felt sense of safety. And if that's not where it needs to be, well, we need to work on the safety first before we even think about forgiving. Another thing that's common of why people may not be capable of forgiving is shame. Again, here comes the shame. It's coming
Amen.
back up again.
Amen.
So if I don't believe I'm good enough, that I have value, that I matter, if I'm struggling with shame, it's going to be really difficult for me to be able to forgive someone because to forgive someone else, we have to see their value as a person.
Mhm.
And so I got to be able to see some of that in myself, or it might be really difficult for me to forgive. So I think there's elements that make it, that kind of cause people to be incapable of forgiving, no matter how hard they try. And so if somebody
Mhm.
wants to forgive, we want to say, okay, well, what's getting in your way that isn't
Mhm.
just you being a bad person or not trying hard enough, which is not really often the case.
Yeah.
Another thing too, I think is it's pressured by society, and that doesn't help. I don't think that helps people to forgive.
It's
I
not.
don't
Yeah.
It doesn't motivate them. If anything, I think it
Uh-huh.
it shames them. It tells them they're wrong. They should be doing this. Even some therapists, unfortunately, believe that you need to forgive in order to heal and move on, but
Oh my God, yes.
the studies
Mm-hmm.
don't show that. So I don't know
Yeah,
where these folks are getting their information. I think it's just hearsay. I think it's clickbait on the internet, right?
it
Like those
is.
articles we see of one I saw that said, "Forgive, your life may depend on it."
Yeah, oh my God.
And I was like, so if we don't forgive, we die? I think that's accurate. But even
Yeah,
even the studies that were in that article, because they were talking about the medical benefits of forgiving, and there are medical benefits, absolutely, but it's not a panacea. It
mhm.
doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah, it's like you have to write a letter to your mother and then burn it. And a like poor letter. Because it's usually presented like something you should be able to do.
Right.
And if you can, something wrong with you.
Mhm.
So, do you actually need to forgive to heal? Like, no, right?
No, you don't. And honestly, anybody who says that you do, this is what I recommend you say to them. That is there one thing that is going to work for everyone? The answer is no. We haven't
Uh-huh.
found it. We definitely haven't found it in psychology. We haven't found it in the medical industry. There's not one thing that works for everyone. If there were, I wouldn't have a job. Think about that. I would just
Mm-hmm.
have one 10-minute session with everybody and I would never see them again because it's one thing that you need to do and you do that and you're fine. We don't have it. Not yoga, not deep breathing, not medication, not therapy, nothing.
Yeah.
It's all about what works for you. For some people, forgiveness has been great. It's really helped in their healing. For some people, it's more acceptance than forgiveness. For some people, it's forgiving themselves, not the other person. And for
Uh-huh.
some people, there is no forgiveness at all. That never comes into the equation, and they heal just fine.
Yeah. So what happens if someone doesn't forgive? Are they stuck?
No, not necessarily. You know, there are people who will notice that they feel less angry, maybe at the person, but maybe they just don't care. And maybe they don't wish them well. But it's not this resentment or anger. It's more of this acceptance. And I think when we look at forgiveness, remember, we have to think about how are we defining forgiveness because that's complex. Because if I were to call up 10 different therapists right now and ask them
Mhm.
to define forgiveness for me, I bet you I'm going to get at least maybe six different definitions.
Yeah.
We're not on the same page. There's not one clinical definition of forgiveness. The researchers don't have one definition that they agree on. So we're all kind of defining it differently. Some people define forgiveness by you have to love your offender. Some people
Mhm.
define it by, well, you don't have to love them, but you have to like them. Some
Yeah.
people define it by you don't need to love or like them. You could feel apathetic towards them, but you just can't wish them harm. Like, where's the line? When does it start to be forgiveness? And so we go back and forth on this. So when people are talking about forgiveness of do I need to, do I not, does it benefit people, does it not, I always ask them, how are you defining forgiveness? What does that term mean to you? Because that is going to lead you in the right direction. And remember, a lot of times people are talking about forgiveness, but they actually mean reconciliation,
Yeah.
and they're not the same. You can forgive someone and never have any contact with them ever again, and you've forgiven them.
Yeah.
You can be in someone's life, you can have contact with them and not forgive them. They
Mhm.
don't always come together.
Yeah. Because that's the fear, right? Like, if I don't forgive, I will never move on.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Then what does cheating actually look like without forgiveness?
Oh my goodness, it can look so many different ways. Sometimes healing from trauma, it has usually a strong body element to it. So sometimes when we talk about trauma, people are like, well, I have to retell my story, or I have to go through the memories, this and this again. Sure, that could work for some people, but being a complex trauma therapist, I tend to see people that have a lot of trauma. I tend to see people that have never felt safe at any moment in their entire
Mhm.
life. They have no idea what that's like. And so when we have a lot of trauma, when we have trauma that's complex or, happens developmentally, a lot of times it's not just one type of therapy or one intervention. Again, one size doesn't fit all, but it's a multiple stuff. So sometimes there's a big body component where you're actually connecting to physical sensations that are stuck. And you're helping those sensations to progress through your body and integrate. And sometimes those sensations will move around, they'll become different emotions, they'll leave your body. Sometimes
Mhm.
trauma healing could look like engaging in relationships that are safe, that are your relationships that support self-worth. That can be part of trauma recovery and often is because we do heal within relationships. Another
Mhm.
aspect could be directly challenging shame that was created and reinforced by trauma. I mean, there's so many methods to heal. Some people incorporate animals into their trauma
Oh.
healing. They will
Uh-huh.
attach to animals, and so again, we want to make sure we're not coming at this with any sort of black and white prescription for anybody. I always tell people try different things, give them a shot, and you're going to
Mhm.
know. You're going to know if you notice some movement. You're going to know if this works for you. Be open minded,
Mhm.
but it's okay to abandon things. Okay. So, for example, deep breathing exercises, right? Some
Mhm.
people think that that's a panacea. Oh, you deep breathe, you're going to calm down your anxiety, it's going to work for you. It actually doesn't work for everyone. In fact, deep
Mhm.
breathing could actually trigger some trauma responses, and it's not good. So,
Mhm.
if that's something that you try and it makes you feel more anxious, or you don't like it, or you don't feel safe, or it's not creating movement, don't do it. Abandon it. Move on to something else that might be more beneficial for you.
Mhm. Yeah. That's that. I agree with it. And you actually wrote the whole book on this, right? Like, you don't need to forgive. What made you take this position?
Oh my goodness. So, I'm a trauma survivor myself. So,
Oh, tell me about it.
yeah, so I experienced severe childhood physical and medical neglect for my whole childhood. And
I'm
so
sorry.
that's okay. And then again, this is something that I've worked through. So you can kind of see how I'm
Uh-huh.
talking about it.
Uh,
Like I'm talking about it in the present moment. I'm not very emotional. Like this is kind of what it's like. When you've done the kind of the recovery work. It's like I know it's a part of me. It's always going to be a part of me. I
uh-huh.
can't just whitewash the past and I don't want to. But when I think about it, when I go back to that place, it feels so different. It doesn't feel like I'm stuck. And it actually gives me a lot of insight. And to be honest, it gives me self-worth. I feel empowered, kind of this feeling of, man, if I can survive that, I can survive this. This is a
Yep.
walk in the park to that. So in doing my own trauma work, I came up against forgiveness. And by the time I was doing my trauma work, I was already a clinician. And so I was asking, okay, do I need to forgive my parents? My abusers?
Uh-huh.
And I was trying to figure out, do I need to forgive them in order to heal, and how do I do that? And I started asking and researching, and nobody had a good answer for me. Everybody had different answers. And so then I thought to myself, how could we be at this place where we don't know? Why do we not know? We need to know this. So I researched it for 3 years because just I wanted to figure out, what is the answer, and for myself, but also for my clients and my colleagues. And in the research, I found out, no, you don't need to forgive. It could benefit some people, but not everybody. And I thought that that was just a really valuable message that needed to get out there.
Yeah. And actually, I like that perspective because a lot of people feel pressured into something they're not ready for, and that's make it worse. And yeah, so the question is like how people understand that they found a right one psychotherapist about this topic.
Yeah, it is the question, how do they know if they found a right therapist or a right intervention or both?
The therapist and boss, yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to choosing a therapist, of course, if it's a therapist that you would like to address your trauma, I would highly recommend looking for a specialist. Now, that is a little bit of a privileged thing to say, okay? Because you have to look at are there specialists in your area? Are they in your state? Can they see you? Do they accept your insurance? Do you have insurance? So we're getting into a
Mhm.
little bit of a privileged territory here. So I just want to be aware of
Yeah,
that
yeah,
and
yeah,
disclose that.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so if somebody were to ask me, hey, how do I find a trauma therapist? I would say, when you're looking for therapists, look for that word trauma, but don't just look for the word trauma informed, because that's a very general category. And it doesn't state therapists that actually know how to work with trauma. It just means they're aware of it and they're aware that it might come
Uh-huh.
up. But someone who is very comfortable working with trauma, when we look at their bios, when we look at the practice that they're in, you're going to see some of those trauma words. And
Okay.
you might see words
Yeah.
like PTSD, which is a diagnosis. You
Yeah.
may see things like EMDR, which is a technique. Another
Uh-huh.
keyword is somatic, because that's
Uh-huh.
body. So there are
Uh-huh.
certain keywords, IFS or internal family systems. Those folks do great with trauma. So there's some keywords you can look for. But one thing I encourage people to do is request a phone call with the
Uh-huh.
therapist. And this could
Uh-huh.
be by Zoom, this could be on the phone, but a lot of therapists will provide a free consultation. And that could be 10, 15, 20 minutes. And it's just an opportunity to get on the phone with this person, to hear their voice, maybe see their face, to ask them some questions and to see how you feel about it. So, some questions to ask would be, hey, I want to come see you to treat my trauma. Don't go
Uh-huh.
into your trauma. Okay. Just very brief. You might give them just a very brief, I have childhood trauma, but you don't need to go into the specifics.
Yeah.
And you may ask them, how would you help me? What would you do? What methods
Uh-huh.
would you use? That's what you're looking for. And get a
Yeah.
sense of what those methods are to see if that person is a good fit. And remember, regardless of what methods the therapists use, studies show that your success in therapy dramatically increases based upon your relationship with the therapist. So, do you feel
Uh-huh.
safe with your therapist? Do you trust them? If you
Uh-huh.
don't, they can be using the best intervention in the world. It may not get you very far. So, when you're having this consultation, I tell people pay attention to how you're feeling. Do you want to keep talking to this person? Do you want to share things with him? Do you feel safe? Because I think that is going to be a big indicator of which therapist you choose.
Yeah, that's very logic. That's the one I say to my community. Exactly same questions you have to ask. Yeah, because some people they're scared to ask, but they have to. So this is how you understand. I have one question from community. Can I? Yeah, so this one person asked if you were abused, but don't blame the abuser, even being without them for a long time, is that an area to focus on when thinking about bettering yourself?
Oh, so the question is, you haven't been with your abuser for a long time, but does this
Uh-huh.
person still feel stuck?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So, when we look at trauma, it's not just about, do I blame the abuser or am I angry at the abuser? It's not just about that. That's just like a piece of it that not everyone experiences. And I want to validate this person because that's very common. There are a lot of people who may have experienced abuse by a person who did it, or maybe they enabled it or they didn't stop it. And sometimes we have information about why. So, for example, maybe this is a parent that also, was abused, or they suffered from mental illness, or they
Yeah.
didn't have the resources, and sometimes we don't blame them. We don't feel angry at them, and that's fine. I think what I would recommend is, where are you stuck? Really leaning into that. Is it emotions? Is it memories that come up? Is it how you think and feel about yourself or other people, or how you see the world? How is this stuckness in your past coming up in your world now? That's going to be the way in. Because if you identify that, sometimes you can get to the core of it. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that whenever sometimes I have a good opportunity, I sabotage
Mm-hmm.
it. So let's
Mm-hmm.
say if I'm up for a promotion and I'm up for a promotion, but then I realize the work is just, I'm not doing as good of a job because I'm up for a promotion. So I sabotage it. Or maybe I'm taking an exam that I studied for, but I show up late, and I kind of realized that, wait a minute, I think I'm doing these things, I'm sabotaging myself. Well, that's the behavior. That might be a sign that there's something beyond that that's deeper. And so as we go deeper, we want to find out, hey, this sabotaging behavior is serving some type of a need. What need is that serving? Does it keep me safe? Do I feel
Mm-hmm.
like getting a promotion or getting a good grade on a test could harm me in some way? And I know it doesn't logically make sense, but remember, the stuckness isn't logical. It's
Mm-hmm.
not in the forefront of our brain, our prefrontal cortex. It's actually in the back parts. So it's not going to sound or be logical. But if I feel like advancing or having an opportunity is threatening, I might sabotage it to protect myself. And that might come from trauma. So the work isn't going to be on, just stop the sabotaging. It's going to be on, well, I need to then find out how to feel safe with being successful. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, which makes sense. Yeah, there's a lot of people now saying that they went a lot of like a lot of different psychologists until they found the right one. And yeah, and there's another question I would have even I would have is when memories seem vivid, is better to chase the memories, trying to retrain them, or leaving the situation behind, whatever the bad memories are about.
Yeah. Ooh. And
Mhm.
again, there's not a clear-cut answer for that one because it's all
Yeah.
about what works for you, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when we're looking at memories, sometimes we look at, okay, what is keeping me sort of connected, with
Mm-hmm.
this memory? Is it an emotion? Is it fear? Is it anger? Is it I don't have agency, in this situation? We may lean into that emotion, see how that feels in the body, and allow that to process. Sometimes in memories, or like the retraining in a way, it might be to, okay, what if I go back to this memory and I had agency? What would I do?
Mm-hmm.
Can I imagine myself doing that in the memory? And then how does that feel? That might be a little way to push forward. And I want to give your community some permission too, because I think sometimes these things can come across too as, oh, just do it, right? Just push through it, just get unstuck. Sometimes we have to walk away from the memory. We have to put the
Mm-hmm.
memory aside. We have to shelve it and come back to it because it feels too overwhelming. It feels unsafe. And sometimes our system will shut down in order to do that. And that is wonderful. Okay, because that is a protective mechanism coming online. So when we talk about doing trauma work, we have to remember we have to feel safe enough to do it, because if we don't do it, one, it's not going to work. It's just going to make us feel like crap because we don't feel safe enough.
Yeah.
And If we push and push and push and we're not feeling safe enough, our brain will shut down. It will find a way to stop that as it should.
Yeah. I think people are happy with the answer in the chat. I'll send you the link to this live stream. And I wanted to ask how people can contact you, like if they're now interesting to have a therapy with you, how they can do that, how you work.
Right. It is hard to get in with me. I'm not going to lie. Okay. Because
So I'm like you.
I I am a specialist. And I can only see people that are in Illinois, so that restricts me. It really does.
Oh, so you don't do like on the Zoom?
I do, but only Illinois and only HIPAA compliant
Oh,
because I'm a therapist, not like life coaches can like, go across state lines
get
and
it,
things
get
like
it.
that. But I do have free resources for people. And so if anybody's interested in that, I would suggest going to my website, which is
Okay.
www.amandaandgregory. If you can like put it in the chat or something for people, that would be great.
Yeah, I will put it in my Discord server. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you sign up for my newsletter, there's a free ebook about trauma and anxiety coping hacks that I can send you.
Okay.
And I've got free guides for my book that you can use in conjunction with my book. I have a lot of free blogs on there about therapy and
Okay.
trauma that people can read. They're really easy to
Okay.
understand, and all of that is free. So I would refer people to look at those resources if it's helpful.
Yeah, chat. Yes, I will send the link 100% to my Discord server because this topic is very important. And I went through this a lot myself. I also was writing a letter to my mom, burned it, didn't help. And then I just found another ways, like same like you saying, like the same. And it was so hard to be honest to find specialists who think the same like I'm thinking.
Mhm.
And yes, you're unique, guys. I recommend you just go to the website and check it out.
And I want to encourage
And
everybody to fire a therapist if you need to. Okay.
yeah,
Seriously, don't be hesitant. I would much rather a client see me a couple of times and say, "Hey, Amanda, it's not a good fit. I'm going to move on." I
Evan.
would praise them to the hills if they did that because I want them to find a clinician that works for them. So please don't hesitate to fire therapists and psychologists, work with new people, get a second opinion. I think we need to be doing that more with doctors, getting second
Evan.
opinions, pushing back on doctors. Unfortunately, we live in a society where we have to advocate for our care. We have to, or else we could easily fall through the cracks. And I wish it was not like that, but it is.
Yeah. Do you think like if somebody will come to you to process that, do you think they have to go to the psychiatrist as well, or no?
No, absolutely
No.
not. So if we look at psychiatrists do not provide therapy, they just do medication. And so if you meet a psychiatrist, you might meet for them an hour, maybe a little longer on your first appointment. Then you may see them for 15 or 20 minutes, every
Evan.
month, every 2 months, every 3 months,
Yeah.
kind of depending upon your need. But psychiatrists are just medication. And so, okay, there might be some therapists that would require you to be on medication if you work with them. I have heard of that. That does happen. But again, that's a good question to ask a therapist if you're going to work with them. Um, I don't do that. I don't require people be on medication. Now, there may be times when I do recommend it because I think it would help the trauma work, but it's not something I require because, again, I know that that doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Well, I don't have more questions from my chat about it, and I think that was very valuable.
Right.
That you are here with me right now, and you explain things in a way that just clicks. Not in just confusing internet way, not pop psychology. I like it so much. Yeah, and I like your book. It's amazing book.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and I'm glad we had this conversation. And seriously, you're an amazing specialist. Thank you for coming here. I know you have another patient now and you have to go to prepare.
I so do. I'm seeing people all the time, but I thank you so much for having this for your community. These are such important topics, and I know that we don't always get the exposure to this.
Yeah, and some of my topics about abuse or ancestors' trauma, which people like selling to people. Oh my god! And these topics are heavy and like pushing so bad on YouTube. There's some topics like I have like 56,000 views, but about abuse just like 200,
Mhm.
and it's so disgusting. Like, yeah,
Yeah. And I know too that it's hard, for people to hear, but I think too, it makes people uncomfortable, which is unfortunate, because there are so many trauma survivors walking around, and you a lot of times you don't know who they are, and you're
yeah,
quite shocked, to find out, but that is someone who is recovering or is, on the other side of recovery. And so, I would love it, for us as a society to get to the point where we're like, yeah, I experienced trauma. Do you want to talk about it? This is what I did. This is what works. You need to, find what works for you. But for us to be a
yeah.
little bit more open about that.
Yeah, that's true. All right, guys, I recommend you, I will not recommend bad things. I check it first. I recommend Amanda, just follow her website, buy her book. It's very important. And please, yes, yes, everybody's happy. I like it. I'll send you the link to this so you can see it
Oh,
too. Like,
great.
yeah. Thank you so much, Amanda. Yeah, thank you for being here. I'll see you maybe next time. Maybe we'll talk maybe in a few months about something else.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Okay. Have a good day. Thank you. Bye bye. All right, guys. That was amazing. I can assure you that she is a very good specialist. She will open your eyes. She will open your mind. She will be a nurse. It's a very good one. Yeah, you will see the reality from another point of view. And that's what I'm trying to explain to people. Like, what the fuck? You have to like think like that way, all right? It will be easier. Life already heavy, life already hard. And if you learn from her, your life will be much easier. All right? Psychologist with a VTuber isn't something I imagine could ever happen. For real? Why? Why? Wait. Tell me more about it. Why do you think like that, Nebula Rain? All right, I need to read. Oh shit, it's too close. Wait. Eh, Wait. I'm not touching you. I'm touching this. Oh wait. All right. I have a thing that caused me to develop an anxiety disorder, and I still haven't faced it. I focus on the other aspects of my life, and I go to the point when I'm happy with myself. Oh yeah, yeah, that's actually very good. And I'm finally thinking about facing the thing. Yeah, it will help you. So, guys, before I recommend something, I do research myself, and I see if it's like fit, uh, like me, right? And it's really helpful what she's saying. It's really helpful what she's writing because I was learning her Instagram. I learned her website, book. I'm telling you, yeah, I recommend. Dave, hello guys, hello. Sorry that I didn't talk to you while talking to Amanda. Oh my god, I'm thirsty. But I didn't want to interrupt her. So, but anyway. Oh shit, what was this? And so, I'm thinking to break this down deeper in the future videos, because there's a lot of people don't really think about it. And yeah, that was a good one. And of course, I can't say a lot because I don't have a license, but I'll just say it from my point of view. She's smart. She is. And she went through this. So yeah. And I like how she talk. Her speech is so like nice. Guys, thank you so much for today's stream. Who made it, who didn't made it, and will watch it later. Yeah, I think I will do some shorts from this stream. And yeah, I think it was helpful. Tell me what you think about it. Is it was helpful or not? Yes or no? She definitely hit the nail in the head. Yeah, she does. I agree. I don't know. I think it's her mood will be so like when she's civic. I don't know. I think she saw my avatar. I don't know about it. But yeah, before the stream, of course, I sent her that who will talk to her. Anyway, guys, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for telling you that. But she heard my real voice. Yeah. Because, the questions I asked couldn't be distracted with the stupid AI voice, but she heard my voice. It's always nice to hear about things and explain knowledge. Yeah. Yes. I'm rooting for that. I want more people to understand things, to change their mind thinking, you know? Yeah. I need to find a specialist about stalking thing, because the book I wrote about healing stalker syndrome, right? That it was my experience, but I need to find somebody who's talking about these things. Cause I see a lot of people now struggling with this, and another topic with that people don't understand that they I'm not gonna leak this topic. I think later. I'm sorry. Guys, you're the best community, I swear. I love you all. You're the best. And let me know if somebody, I think everybody who's here now, they're in my Discord server. Yeah, I think everyone. Anyway, I will see you on the Discord. Now I need to make a shorts from the stream, as the questions was amazing. She answered them that very good. And I need more people see it. All right, guys. Meow.